Thank you all for coming to the Budget Manager Drop-In. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tom, and I'll be your presenter for today. Hi, Charlotte, you right? Before we go into the content of the session, of what we'll be looking at, I want to talk about the introductory slide. That this session is kind of designed to ensure that all budget managers are aware of all the changes that people will bring. It's a big system. We are replacing our current financial systems, so it's a big change. So it's great that you could take time out of your busy schedule to come here and learn about all those changes. Also, what I'll do is give you an overview of key self-service processes. So we'll have a look at requisitioning and expenses, which I cover on other sessions like employee sessions, which you may have attended. I recognize some faces, so you have. Which is why this is kind of going to be more kind of slide driven. I'll actually be logging into the system and showing you that again. I'll just focus on a few important key points around those and kind of help bring everything else that we will have talked about up until that point to life. And also enable you to support your colleagues during the transition. So give you all the necessary knowledge to also help them in those key service processes and so on. So the session is led by myself. I'm the new training and ops manager, and also the lead trainer for the session. So in a way, I'm kind of, this particular session is close to my heart because I'm also an ops manager. I run budget reports and have managed budgets for years. So this particular one is really also close to my heart. So content-wise, what we're going to have a look at is the new chart of accounts. So you're all aware of the element 1, 2, and 3 code structure that is going to be replaced, and I'm going to show you what with. And on this session, we're going to have a look at kind of greater level of detail of all the different segments. So other sessions like the employee, you may have seen the segments, and you may have made some changes to them. On this session, I'm going to explain exactly what each one is meant to represent and give you an idea of kind of greater level of depth and detail around those. Then we're going to talk about the security rules and approvals and how they work and how they have been set up in the system, and you will see it's kind of moving away from a very restricted system to a more open security. Then we're going to have a very, very brief chat around the project subledger and the poet code because that might affect you. So think of these as kind of managing research projects. So this will be kind of relevant to some, but not to others. Which is why it's just one slide on the code. And then I'm going to help bring all of that to life on the self-service application. So like I said, I'll have some slides on requisition and expenses to show you how that, what that looks like in those processes. Then quickly have a look at the new journal format, because we will still have journals on the system. At the moment we're using Coda Excel, you may be familiar with it. It obviously has to be replaced, but it is still going to be a spreadsheet upload. So there is just going to be a new spreadsheet, and then finally the main point of you being here probably is running the new budget report. What that looks like, you will see that it's in some cases a little bit similar to Foxy, but in others it's very, very different. So we'll have a look at that later today. Starting with key changes from Coda. At the moment, what we have is a single ledger system, which is why the research projects and all expenditure accounts, and in fact all accounts at the university follow the same structure. It's element 1, element 2, element 3. Going forward, the Oracle system that we call Nucor has subledgers. So there is one general ledger that everything ultimately gets posted into. But there's also a number of subledgers like payables, receivables, fixed assets, project is one of them. So that is the key change. And what that means is we can set up a different rules on all of those different subledgers. And you'll see the project, for example, there's a different accounting code structure applied to it just because we can, and it gives us a lot more functionality that goes with it. So in kind of general terms, we are moving away from the 3-element code structure towards a set of 7-segment structure in the Oracle General Ledger. So like I said, everything ultimately gets posted onto General Ledger, so it will have this 7-segment structure.
But you will see on the subledger side, it might be slightly different. So this is kind of like the main change. So this is what the new chart of accounts structure is going to look like. So we have the 7 segments, and I am focusing on segment 2 till 5 later. So starting with 1, we have company. So effectively that identifies a legal entity. Which legal entity? In 99.9999% of cases, this will be a UOB. Only very few people in finance will ever need to worry about a different company in there. It will be 10, it will default into 10 everywhere on the system, so you do not have to really worry about it. Then we have segment 2, analysis, that effectively describes what goods or services are bought or sold. So this is your what, effectively. Cost center, everybody's familiar with the idea. There's effectively which area unit is responsible for this particular purchase, where it is based. Activity identifies effectively the purpose of that particular purchase. Source of funds, where the funding is coming from. In the majority of cases, this probably will be general funds, but we could have some external funds as well. So this is identified by this segment. Then we have the intercompany, and again, these are the latitude, the intercompany and spare, which you probably don't really need to worry about. Again, very few people in finance will ever need to change intercompany. So let's say if they need to change it to Alt Innovations, that they can for that particular side of things, but in the majority of cases this will be default to zeros. And then we have a spare segment. It's 6 zeros at the moment, and it is exactly what it says on the tin. It's just spare, it's just future-proofing in case in the future, 5 years down the line, the university wants to add another layer of financial information. We really do not want to go through the exercise of changing the whole accountable structure again anytime soon. So we can just create the spare, rename it, make it meaningful, put some values behind it without affecting all the existing account code structures. So like I said, the company, intercompany, and spare I don't really cover in any detail. You just leave them as default. So let's look at the analysis code. So this segment is similar in purpose to the element 1 code. However, the codes are changing, so it's not the same element 1 codes that we are using now. But the purposes of this particular code is the same, and you can see that the income will be coded between those values. Then we have the expenditure pay, expenditure non-pay, assets, liabilities, and funds. So all those different values will be sitting in between those ranges, as you see on this screen. And that really is all there is to say about it, really. The nice thing about the system is, and you will see that later, a lot of the values, and that includes analysis code, are just derived from whatever choices you are making on the practical application side of things. So if you are raising an expense and you are selecting an I-test, then that will default into the miscellaneous expenditure on the analysis code side. So you do not have to update it. Same for requisitioning. When you're requisitioning from a catalog, again, you do not have to think about it. It will just be derived from your choices on the system. Something definitely for you to be aware of, but a lot will be sorted out just by defaults. Cost center, very similar to element 2 code. So obviously there has been a remapping exercise that has gone on, because even though it's similar in purpose, again, the codes are changing. So this will be alphanumeric characters as opposed to 4 letters. There is some method to how the codes were created. So we have a college-based start with a C, professional services starts with P. If there are other institutional areas, they start with A, subsidiary companies Q to X at present, and then followed by that letter, followed by 3 digits. So forget about your element 2 codes. They have been remapped, and there will be effectively a new value in there. Probably one of the most important ones, so do familiarize yourself with the new values when we go live. And this is kind of trying to explain how the parent-child
the structure is going to look like. So we have an example of human resources, and kind of reading it from the right to left, you can see that what we are actually entering on those different transactions are the actual the children values, if you like. So let's say I'm looking at HR operations and recruitments, that's P135, and effectively, let's say I'm raising a requisition, and this is the value. So obviously, this is the cost center that's going to be charged with that particular for that particular requisition cost. But all of that has a parent value. So in this case, it's HR operations and recruitment, and you can see at that parent level, it's actually made up of 3 cost centers that are sitting underneath, and all of that rolls up into the parent called human resources. Now, this becomes relevant when you are running financial reports and everything. What is this used for? You could run the report still looking at the HR operations and recruitment on operations and recruitment, HR recruitment, and HR operations, and select those 3 codes. But what you could also do is just select the parent, and then all those values underneath will be captured in that report. So it's just designed in this way to help you slice that information on the reports, and we'll see the practical application later to show you what that looks like. But pretty much all of the different segments have this parent-child structure present on the system and reflected on it. Segment 4, so this is where it kind of starts to diverge a little bit from what we know and what we are used to. It's a numeric 5-digit code, and the aim is of describing what part of the core business that transaction is contributing to, effectively what is its purpose, and you have kind of 2 general headings here, the academic activities and support activities. So underneath the academic, you have research and teaching activities, and then obviously there are kind of child values underneath. And then support activities, we could have marketing here, we could have library services, we could have any number of other support activities. So this is already kind of starting to look different, and kind of hoping that you will start thinking about how you can use this new account code structure to code your transactions, expenses, requisitions, and then run your reports to show, let's say, spend for marketing in a particular place. The nice thing about it is this list is shared across the university. So something that we couldn't do before was, let's say, easily say how much money the institution is spending on marketing. We needed to know exactly which element 3 codes effectively have been used for this particular activity, and then even that was kind of fraught because in some cases not all of that particular ring-fenced budget was spent on marketing, maybe just part of it. So actually this has become a very, very difficult exercise, and finance tried to do the best job that they could with that information. Going forward, once something is in the marked as marketing in a segment 4, in the activity segment, then they can run a report and say, oh, how much was spent for marketing in that particular cost center, or maybe across an institution, or maybe across a college. So this already is giving us a lot more powerful budgetary information. Completing the picture is source of funds, and that is effectively where the income expenditure is coming from, where is it funded or grouped. In some cases it could be a specific funder that will have its own unique code, and then if you want to use that funder, that particular pot of money, then you have to update the segment 5. We have to regularly report by the type of funding. So again, this is very difficult because again, this is all tied to element 3 codes. So there's a lot of massaging the data and trying to derive that information from what finance staff knew. Going forward, a lot easier exercise. We just need to make sure that we are logging it correctly. There is a caveat here, and the budget minimum that is going to be set for these sources of funds is going to be 20K. So if you come to us and say, oh, can you create a source of funds for £5,000, we might challenge you on it and say, okay, what do you need it for? Why do you need a separate pot? And put it in this as a separate fund, could this just be general funds? Could this just be your expenditure budget effectively for your department, let's say, and maybe use the activity codes or maybe use something else somewhere else to try and achieve the result that you want to achieve. So 20K is kind of the minimum, but it's not applicable to external funds because they do have their own specific restrictions, and we have to create a unique value, and even if it's £2,000 because it's external, it's important to track it in this way. So they will have their own values, and those unique values will start with a 6. Shared will start with a 5. So what's happened because we introduced this new structure? There has been a conversion of old to new that we did. So you can see an example. So we have a staff development, academic services, and staff development at the top, and that has been remapped. And you can see the company, intercompany, and sphere. They're all just defaults. So we're only focusing on the 4 in the middle. The element 1 translates into training costs, course fees, so it's also an element 1, but a different one, so the values have changed. The cost center, LADA previously, now it's P052, but it is academic services. So I imagine that what will happen is there will be a one-to-one mapping for all cost centers when we go live. And then element 3, this is where it kind of changes. We are splitting that element into activity and source of funds, like I said, to try and capture the information in a different way with a better level of detail. I hope it makes sense. And by the way, if you have any questions, do ask them as we go along. Now, this would all be kind of too simple. If it just, we could just move on to the new structure and forget about the old one. Not immediately after go live, because not all suppliers that we are having an integration with, because Nuco is integrated with a number of systems, such as Key Travel, Fleet Check, and Kinetics. They need to update their systems in order to take the new account code values. But this will not happen ready for go live. It will probably happen a few months after. No timeline for me to give you, but what that means is when you are ordering something from Key Travel, Fleet Check, or Kinetics, then they will still have to use the old account code structure, element 1, element 2, element 3, which is why the mapping of old to new is so important, particularly at the beginning. Not only for your awareness, but also for the fact that you actually still be using the old account code structure. So you could potentially have actually 3, the old one, the new one, and then the poet code for the project. So minor inconvenience. So how we converted old to new? Every single element 1, element 2, and 3 code value has been remapped, so the remapping already exists. If you need to find out your new values, contact your finance business partners. Maybe some of you are them and have done it or have been involved. If not, contact them. They will tell you exactly what those new values look like. There were around 9,000 codes to remap, so we kind of expect, maybe it's not entirely perfect. There might be some issues that we need to resolve post go live. On previous presentations, I have been saying that this remapping spreadsheet, because one exists, will be made available, so everybody will be able to go and check. There was, however, highlighted an issue with ownership because of the fact that we have Kinetics, Fleet Check, and Key Travel still using the old values. If you want to create a new value, that needs to then feed into that, effectively, the remapping spreadsheet, and it needs to be updated. So it couldn't be something that we could hold centrally, because potentially a lot of people would be accessing and updating it at the same time. So instead, what we opted for is, because the finance business partners are already involved in this and have been involved, this will be owned by them locally. So again, they are your people to speak to regarding the old mapping and also any new mapping that needs to come in the future. So I actually have to create new old values, if that makes sense. Having said that, what we are trying to do throughout the transition is to
try and start thinking in a new way how we can use the activity codes, how we can use the source of funds, particularly because that's where the major difference is in making our financial information more meaningful and run good, meaningful reports. So it's something for you to think about. Let's talk about security. Everything that you can, all the data you can view, the requisitions you can make, expenses you can raise, is controlled by security roles. Not to confuse them with access roles to the system. It's a security layer is completely separate to that. Each security role has been created in such a way to reduce the maintenance effectively. At the moment we have hundreds. Going forward we will have 38. So there's quite fewer number of groupings, which means we're moving away from a very locked down system to kind of more semi-open or semi-closed, depending on how you look at it. So it's kind of trying to, okay, you need to access a particular code. Do we restrict it or do we give it to you? And in the majority of cases, the answer is going to be you will probably have access to what you need to access. And by the way, the approval pools, so for all those different requisition orders, I'll tackle approval later, but they follow the same hierarchy rules as the security group. So those pools are sitting in those 38 security groupings. So to bring it to life, you have an example of LES and DARO, and if you are in LES, you will have access to these cost centers. So that means you effectively have access to the whole college, and that is one of those 38 groupings. So if you want to, let's say, raise a requisition within LES, you will be able to find a cost center that is different to your cost centers within LES, but you will not be able to select DAROs, because that is outside your security roles, unless we give it to you. We can. But by default, majority, or if not all, everybody will just get the security role that is relevant to them based on where they are in the institution. Same for DARO. It will probably work a little bit better, I suspect, on the professional side of things. In college, it literally is whole college, but we will see how it goes. So these are security. So that reduces the workload on the team having to update and keep hundreds upon hundreds of security roles updated and make sure that the right person gets access to the right cost center and so on. But it also comes with a responsibility. You have that flexibility, it's great, because a lot of you as budget managers will need that flexibility. But it obviously comes with a responsibility. Make sure you are making the right choices when you are raising the requisitions or expenses. Question?
Why is it called child cost centre? Why is the child there?
Because again, they are all rolling up to the parents. So we just kind of use that as a child value. So this is this is actually the value that you're going to be using on your requisitions, expenses, and everywhere else. But they all have a parent, which you can then run a report on. So I would imagine that Les is a parent, and it's probably a very high-level parent. And you can just run a report on Les. You do not have to select all those child values, if that makes sense.
Les the big parent over the child.
Yes. So the parent is also a value. There is a value behind it, and I think it's just letters. So we'll see that later, but I kind of removed it from here to not confuse you even more, because ultimately the segments, the actual segments that you apply practically are the child values. You don't really have to worry about the parent levels. It's just for running reports and nothing else. A few words about the POET code. So the 7 segment value, that's one thing. POET code is another. Every research project, because of its kind of nature, it has a funder, and sometimes it cuts across different organizations. By organizations, I mean like colleges and schools. They have their own separate budget, and they also have their own separate subledger. And what we decided to do is introduce a new account code structure for that subledger, and it's called the POET. We love our acronyms at the university, and it stands for something. So each project will have a number, organization,
we will be logging an expenditure type when we are raising an expense claim or requisition, and also it will have its own task number. So there is a practical application of that because you are entering that on the requisitions and expense lines, and when we are doing invoicing as well. Ultimately, all of that maps back to the general ledger, but at that practical application point of view, you do use the POET code. The way it works on the system is once you start selecting the POET code and you want to charge research projects, then you do not update the account code. It actually gets, the field disappears, you cannot update it. So it's always one or the other, so that should help with any issues. What that gives us the ability to do is set up projects in such a way, research projects, that we can restrict what we can spend money on. Let's say a particular funder really does not want their money to be used on, I don't know, subsistence. And the fact that we have it in the subledger, we can say, oh, this expenditure type is restricted. You cannot have it on this project. At the moment, anything goes. So it is quite a powerful tool, and I think it will help us both with the managing of the research project budgets, minimize the issues and mistakes that are happening, but also improve reporting. Because particularly on the expenditure type of things, we are actually going into greater level of detail than we do on the general ledger side. So all of that corresponds to the 7 segments. Up there, we don't really need such a greater level of detail, but for the funders, they really need, you need to show exactly which type of subsistence and so on. On the general ledger, it's just subsistence. So a number of reasons why we are doing it in this way, but it creates another layer of complexity. Any questions?
Sorry, you've got a project number which distinguishes what project it is.
Yes.
What does a task number do? What's a task?
So you know how you have at the moment the project codes, when you're looking at the element tree, it has letters and numbers. So for the existing projects, when they are migrated over, the numeric part of that code will become the project number. So you actually already know, or could know, or the PIs could know right now what the project number is going to be in a new world. It's literally just that numeric value. So you drop the letters. The letters identify the funders, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That becomes part of the task structure. And then people will be selecting exactly which task. So if you have, let's say, one funder, the task will be called 1.1, and you will see the funder name. If you have 2 funders, then 1.1, and then 2.1, and then you could have subtasks underneath, depending on, but that is how projects are structured. So this is where it kind of goes into. But the project numbers, it's just a numeric part. Somebody asked me the question, so if you drop the letters, did you ever encounter a duplication in the number if you just have the numbers? It only happened for one. So somebody, one unlucky PI will have a new number generated for them. Everyone else can just use their, they already know their values. Purchasing goods. So moving on to the practical application. What does that look like? What does that mean for end users? What does that mean to you potentially? Any employee can requisition goods or services. I think most people in this room already know that. Catalog requisitions under £500 will be automatically approved. PO will be created immediately and issued to the supplier automatically, and they will receive it and provide the goods. There are exceptions. Technical and hazardous items will still need the correct approvals. There will be category managers. They will be looking at, you can't just order, I don't know, a bottle of acid or other stuff. Just because it's a catalogue and under £500, this needs looking at, and it needs a relevant approval. Everything above £500 will require approval. And like I said earlier, the approval pools are set up exactly as the security rules. For all non-catalog orders, every single one will go through an approval regardless of the amount. So it is just a rule helpful for the catalog orders, not everything else. There are 2 approval pools, and that is the threshold is £10,000. So below it's under, for higher pool, it's over that. And it's very simple to approve, and I'm going to show you on a slide how to do that. So when you raise a catalog or non-catalog item, in this case I raised a non-catalog for desks. I appreciate it's a bit small, but I'm zooming in on particular parts in this. You will ultimately get to an edit requisition screen where you will be able to see the charge account, and it will default in there for you. So I use the word default. Everybody will have a default. So it will be the cost center where you are based in the institution, so that will pop in there straight away. The source of funds is always going to be general funds. The activity is always going to be support. So what you are able to do though is click on that blue icon next to the charge account, which will display all the different default values. And you can see each one has a value, each one has a name, and each one is effectively a drop-down menu, which you can click on and select. So I think in this example, I'm updating the activity because the default is admin services support. If I click on that, it will give me some initial values to select from. But each list, and in fact, pretty much every list on the system has a search at the bottom. So you can obviously know your values, but in case you don't, you click on search, and then you know that you want to, that your activity is library services. Instead of searching by value, you can search by description. And, or let's say you could put marketing in here as well, or other. And then update it and then select it. What you can also do on that line is put the project details. So this is the poet code, and this is an example of what that looks like. So you would start with the project number, then you find your project, which again you can do by the number, and you can also search by the project name because it will have its official name, so you can do both. As soon as you start doing that, the charge account will be sort of become uneditable, so you do not have to worry about it anymore. It will just remap automatically. You don't really need to think about it. Then all you need to do is populate the rest. Select your task number, select your expenditure item date, which I think will default in. Then you pick the expenditure type and expenditure organization. So this will all be derived from that particular project and how that particular project is set up. So you will not be able to say, select a task 2.1 if task 2.1 does not exist for that project. So it's, I want to say, it's another layer of complexity, but it's quite hard to get it wrong when you see it. Once you've done that, you can then submit, and then the project will be charged instead, not the original charge account, if you like. Once you've submitted that particular order, and it was for 5 desks, no catalog, the approval pools, they receive, in this case lower, they receive that notification that there is a requisition to approve, and we'll be able to see who it came from. And what I'm doing in this slide, I'm not clicking on approve, I'm actually going into the actual requisition, the notification. So you'll be able to see the amounts, you'll be able to see the requisition lines, you can see the 5 desks, and you have an option in the top right corner to approve, reject, request more information, and so on.
Does that only get generated for things over £500?
Yes.
So any member of staff can say, I want to pick a chair for my office.
Yeah.
If it's under £500, I can put that through and that just automatically gets.
On the catalogue, if it's from a catalogue, so think Science Warehouse, the answer is yes.
Are you not worried that people are going to take advantage of this?
In what way?
Like buy things that are not needed.
Okay.
Because they can.
Okay.
And it's not, no one's checking on it or.
So you as a budget manager would be checking on it.
Obviously, if it's already been done and you're not aware of it,
Mm-hmm.
you'll have to.
Yep. Then you have to fix it. Yes, you will have to fix it. And then probably have a very, very honest conversation with the person who's done it. Obviously, errors will happen, but you know.
I'm thinking, especially with
mhm.
like fresh thinking, people might say, "Oh, I've got a meeting. It'd be nice to have some cakes."
No. Fresh thinking will follow, and all internal trade will follow the non-catalog way.
Oh.
And every single one, regardless of the amount, will go for an approval. So it is just catalog. Think Office Depot and stuff like that on the catalog, whatever. There's loads of catalog. Actually, so I can see where you're coming from. There is potential there, but just because people can does not mean that they should. And just because everybody has access to requisitioning does not mean that you will not have dedicated staff in your team for raising those requisitions. It's just enabled as part of your employee role. Everybody gets it, but you might still have, okay, I don't know, Gladys has always been the person doing all the requisitions. That does not have to change.
So there is education here, I appreciate. You might need to have a chat with staff like, okay, now it's very open, but let's not do things we will regret. You can still always return the goods and trying to, fix it. But I think we need to go live and see how we go before we make any changes to the process. It is designed to kind of make it just easier and helpful. I'm an ops manager. I get almost daily emails. Tom, can you approve this order? And then I go in and then I approve. And in a number of years, I have never ever rejected an order from my staff because I know what they're ordering and I can trust them, and it's never been an issue. So this way, I'm just like, oh great, I don't have to click anything, and they don't have to wait for me to click when I'm like busy delivering presentations. Expenses, again, all employees will have an ability to submit an expense claim. Now the approvals work on the line manager structure. It's not going to the approval pools, so that is a change. So now line managers are going to be approving expenses. Now what we're not asking line managers to do is to check all the amounts and check all the receipts and everything is okay. They can do it if they want it. They can even see the budget codes that the staff have entered to make sure that it's okay. But we're effectively asking them to approve it in principle. You know your member of staff went on a conference or took the train somewhere or went for an eye test. You will know as a line manager because you are close to your members of staff. There is another second stage approval afterwards that goes to expense auditors, and they will be reviewing all the receipts and making sure everything is okay. So there is a two-stage process here. Another change that we're making is we are going to allow photos and scans of receipts to be attached on expense claims. So that's quite nice. No more raising it on Proactis and then printing it off, putting it in an envelope and sending to payroll for processing. Weird. Always been weird. And even if you try to attach something, then the file size was so small that you couldn't do it. Can't wait. It's under 5 weeks now to go live. That will change. An example, what that looks like is we have an eye test here, and you'll be able to see that in the bottom right corner, you have an option to have the account, but you can also start populating the POET code, the project number and task number, and it will charge the project instead. Now the full POET code isn't displayed here. That is because the expenditure type will be driven by the type you selected, and the date will be driven by the date that you already selected. So that's why you only select the number and the task here. So if you have expenses related to projects, you are able to charge them in this way. Any questions?
What if the line manager is actually not the budget holder of the money?
Mm-hmm.
How
So
does that work? How could a line manager know that there's money in the account?
they might not know. So it could be, if that is what you decide as a department to do, you could have some kind of a mechanism for internal conversation. You are a line manager for someone, you'll be approving expenses, but make sure you check with X, Y, and Z that there is money on the account. So that could be a conversation, or it would have to be a conversation. 'Cause otherwise, they will not know. And also, by the way, when you're raising purchase orders or expenses, there is no commitment check on the system. Like, kind of is at the moment on Proactis. Something pops up and says, oh, you're over budget, and then you click OK anyway.
Yeah.
So no commitment checks. I've never like, oh no, I shouldn't do this. I always click OK. Very quickly, fixed assets. Any purchase above 25k, and that is like a single purchase, not 100 items for £25 or 1,000. It's one item, will need to be posted into the fixed asset ledger, and that is done by updating the analysis code to 71340. Now there's going to be a team doing that, so they will receive a notification and they'll see, oh yeah, there's something that is above 25k, should this be a fixed asset, they will be making that amendment and the change. Aspiration long term would be for the requisitioners to do it. Good luck. I don't see that happening anytime soon. I think it will be stuck with that team. But again, we have a fixed assets ledger, so we can then apply some depreciation rules and so on, which is again, really nice benefit of having a sub-ledger for fixed assets. So just something for you to be aware of. That's something someone might get stuck because it went to a different team and they need to update a code or not. So something for you to be aware of. I don't spend too much time on this one. Journals. There is going to be a replacement for Coda Excel. It is still a spreadsheet upload, like I said. There is going to be a template that is going to be shared with you by again, finance business partners. Go to them for all of those. There will be a kind of general ledger journal between those different 7-segment value codes, but you also now know that there is the project subledger. We might need to be journaling between projects and the general ledger accounts and so on. So there could potentially be 2 types in there. And I do have a file just to show you what that looks like of that new new file. So the actual file that will be uploaded is on this tab here. This is the file that the system accepts and it will take, but you can see there are just a number of endless columns and columns and columns. So instead what we're going to give you is something with an input sheet. So we will just have that, and we'll be asking you to put the journal batch name, some kind of description, some kind of identifier for the journals, accounting date, and then you will have those 7 segments to populate. So that is for the credited and debited amounts. So you have the company analysis, cost center, and so on. So at that point, you know exactly which ones you're trying to journal from. And then you have the debit, and then you have the credit amounts, and then you can populate it in this way, send it back to your finance business partner, and they can push it through the system. So as simple as we can make it. Because asking you to put details on the other on this page would be potentially a lot of errors. So there's going to be an input sheet and some instructions as well. The nice thing is once you're done, you will be able to click, check credit and debit. If it balances, if you click on that, if you have macro enabled, maybe I need to enable content, and then it will tell you, yeah, credits and debits are balanced. So the system will run things like that just to check, help squash all the errors and issues. So there will be a version for this for projects and this one that I'm showing you. So speak to your finance business partners to get it. Reporting. So I'll do a demo how you can access that report. What is there to say? There's nothing really that useful here. I suggest we get to it. So I'm going to come out again. and show you the report. So I'm logged in a testing environment, so I'm logged in as myself, so I get access to, on this particular one, to everything. So don't get overwhelmed with what you're seeing here. You would not see quite so many headings. So I'm going to go into my navigator. I'm going to scroll all the way down to Tools. And there is going to be a link for Reports and Analytics. And that is the way to access all reports, regardless of what you're accessing. Project reports, financial reports, line manager reports, head of school reports, ops manager report, all of them. Reports and Analytics. So I click on that. In the top right corner, I have an option to browse catalog, which is what I recommend you click, which will take you to Oracle Business Intelligence page. Now, all the reports will be stored as dashboards in a dashboards link at the top. So again, I have access to everything under the sun. You will only see the ones that are relevant to you, but the ones that you are looking for, and the one for today, is under UOB Custom Finance, General Ledger. That is the report you need to click. So dashboards, UOB Custom Finance, General Ledger. So if you have the financial analyst role on the system, that dashboard will be available to you. You'll be able to click on that and click on this report. I need to access it in a different way. I was hoping it would display. Actuals. No. Bear with me, guys. Okay, I'll access this one. So what you will have at the top is you'll be able to select parameters for the report that you're trying to run. So now think, yeah, I'm running like a Boxy report, and this replaces the parameters that you would put on a Boxy report. So you will have a period name that you will be selecting. You will have an option to select a ledger, but you would just keep the UOB ledger, and probably that will be the only option that you will have access to. You will not have access to any other ledgers. You can select different period years, and I'm not expecting you'll be able to access any previous years because we are not actually migrating any previous financial year's data. We're just going to migrate the balances for this year and nothing else. And then at the top, you will have an option to effectively select your parameters for the report. So you can keep all those effectively segments, analysis, cost center, activity, source of funds as all, and just run everything that you have access to. But this will also follow your security rules. So if you're running this, you could potentially run a report for the whole college. So you might want to just zoom in on a particular, let's say, cost center. So if you click on that, you have an option to, let's say, select individual values, but also at the bottom, you can search. So at the moment, I have all of them selected, so I can remove all. And what I could do is, I actually know my value, so I can say it's P2 or 30. I'm going to search. Yeah, it's the transaction services that I'm interested in. I can move it to the right side. So my report is going to capture that particular cost center. I can change this starts with to contains and say maybe legal. Can't remember, but I just want legal services. And this is where you see the child and parent values. So legal services actually is a very small cost center. It's only one child, and it's P101, and it has parents, but they're all the same. But you could have a situation where it kind of all rolls up into kind of multiple. So in practice, you will be running those reports at different parent levels to see what kind of information that captures. So for this one, let's say I just want all legal services. So I'm just going to select the top parent. I'm going to move it across, and maybe I'm done. So I click OK. You can do the same for, let's say, activity. I just want to see, let's say, marketing. So you can just go in, search, type marketing, limited to that particular one. But I'm going to leave it as all. So what I'm going to do is not actually run this report because it will take some time to run. I actually have one ready that I've run before to show you. The first tab on it is very useful. It will show you the parameters that you have selected. So the parameters that I have just been selecting, these will be captured on the parameters tab. So you can see some analysis codes have been selected, one cost center only, a 057, but then all activity and then all sources of funds. And you can see which period was selected, March 19. So this is like a monthly report for that. So you will never forget exactly what parameters you've selected. Then we have a number of tabs at the bottom. We have a summary. It's almost like all the costs added up based upon, in this case, activity code. So activity code is almost like taken as the top level of how the costs are summed up. And you can see there's different breakdowns, information technology, there's some default in there, marketing, and so on. And if you scroll across, then you see the sources of funds value, and then you get the actual financial information. So you have the previous year actuals, current budget. Obviously in this instance, there's nothing in there, but you would probably have a current budget at least. Then previous period actuals, so that is similar to Boxy, everything before that particular month, so everything before March up until that point. Then current month actuals, so this is for March. Commitments, so all approved purchase orders that are going through. You can see the levels here. Then you've got the total, and then budget remaining overspend. Obviously everything is negative because there is no current budget, but you would have kind of more meaningful values. So it all adds up to, let's say, almost $1 million. Then we have second tab, the same information, but this time we are taking the source of funds as the almost like the top value. So it's summarized by that. So you can see commercial services, default, some general, probably majority will be general, and then research and contracts, and then you have also got the activity as the second level. Scrolling across, you get the same information, and it all ultimately will also add up to the same amounts. It is just analyzed in this different way. So you do not actually have to do your own activity, sources of funds slicing. It's already done for you. So you can just look up the values and say, oh yeah, this is how much I spent on this particular activity or source of funds. It's already on the tabs. You also have the analysis codes as well on the third tab. So you have your catering, consumables, so these are your element 1 codes equivalents. Here, how much you spent on all those categories. And again, you have your different values. If you scroll down, it all should add up to the same amount because you have different subtotals here. Then we have the fourth tab, purchase orders. So this is where you are analyzing your commitments. So when you were saying, people could be raising orders and they could just be going through, this is your tab to review, because actually what it gives you, you can see the requisition requester's name, and you can see, somebody's ordering something that they shouldn't have ordered, maybe. So this is where you can do your analysis of that, and you can see exactly what those orders are. Supplier name, amount, quantity ordered, what's the PO status, whether it's closed or open, exactly the values that were selected when people were raising those orders. So it is quite a useful tab. The last one, journals. It's called journals, but what it means is it's effectively the closest you get to the Boxy report. So this is individual transactions. This is just a breakdown. It's not summarized by any particular value, activity, sources of funds. We have tabs for that. This is detail one by one, each particular specific transactions on the cost side of things, not commitments. So again, a lot of details here, which you can see. Obviously the account code structure, amounts, all of that, descriptions, suppliers, all that information is here. So you can, again, just like on Boxy, you can review it monthly just to check everything is okay, everything is fine. So I think this is quite a useful report. I think it's really good, personally, but the thing to get your head around is going to be effectively the new account code structure and how you can use it. And also like what rules, what processes you're going to come up with in your particular department to capture those costs in a particular way. You might just, even though you have access to all the activity codes, let's say, it doesn't mean that you have to use them. Not all departments will be using, let's say, teaching or research. You might just have a selection and that's all you're focusing on. And if you do that, then you run a report and all of the summary is done for you, so you do not have to do anything. It's all there. And then at the end of the year, oh yeah, this is how much money I spend on marketing, this is how much money I spend on all of these different categories, and it will be up to you to decide which ones you use. So I think going forward, when we start using this and applying it, we will start getting good ideas around how we want to effectively manage our budgets.
And that report's just open automatically into Excel, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can you have it in PDF format if you want it?
I think so. Let me just check. It seems to only be able to export to Excel, but I do wonder whether in Excel itself you can export into PDF. Maybe Excel has that function, I can't remember, I can check. Yeah, you can export a PDF. You can create a PDF from within the actual Excel itself, not an issue. So it exports into Excel, which, by the way, since I went there, you can actually schedule this report. There is an option in the cog in the top right corner, and if you click on the schedule, you can select the parameters for that particular report. So my parameters have come through, so I have my legal services and so on. I can decide on the output, what the output's going to be. The destination type is email. Then I put the schedule, frequency once, or maybe monthly, starting this particular date. You do not actually have to, once you've set this up, you never have to go again, because it will just be, the output will be emailed to you. You put your email address in there, job done, and then it will just come through to you with the frequency that you set it for. So it's quite useful.
Is it not sent on people?
Yes. So you can set a different email here. So if you need to have this generated and then sent back to someone, then you can put that here. Okay. Any questions before we wrap? Yes.
Just ask, if you're managing budgets that are like between, say, £1,000 and £5,000, how is that going to be handled?
So when you say budget, is that like a single cost center?
No, they're like student entry accounts or visiting researchers.
So they could have their own unique values. I would have to check that particular one, but if we need to track them separately, then I know you're probably remembering that rule, 20k rule, and is it now all going to be lumped? I'll need to take that away for your particular example, but if it's unique, then it could have its unique value, in which case it would be tracked separately. If it doesn't have to be, then...
Well, I have to do like reporting on what's being spent on each of the accounts.
Okay.
So could it be handled through Nucor or?
So you potentially could speak to your finance business partner and tell them about your need to have this, and then they could maybe already, because you already have those accounts, maybe they have already been remapped to their own unique values, which have their own sources of funds account. I cannot answer, because I can imagine it being done in different ways.
Yeah, we need to create new accounts and stuff with new DRs and new restrictions. Okay, so the business finance.
Yes, your finance business partner, speak to them because they own it.